Both UCLA football and men's basketball are in huge recruiting battles. The Bruins are trying to flip a pair of recruits in football, while Mick Cronin must convince Christian Collins, a five-star, to come to UCLA over Kentucky.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson Yoxheimer. Thanks for making it your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever it's your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. Welcome back, everydayers. Thanks for making this show your first listen, and thanks for tuning into the number one sports podcast network out there. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. All FanDuel customers, if you're a new customer, all new customers can bet just $5. And if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today if you're a new customer. What we're talking about today, UCLA's keys to victory and impressing me versus Presbyterian coming up. We have the development of Trent Perry in segment 2, but we're leading a lot with UCLA recruiting. Both the Bruins football team and UCLA basketball team on the men's side have big-time recruiting battles. Let's start with UCLA's Christian Collins recruitment. The Bruins haven't done much in their 2026 recruiting. Christian Collins, just the other day, as reported by Adam Zagoria, is not signing until the spring. Interesting. Does that mean his decision is not coming till the spring? Not entirely sure. But what Zagoria also noticed and also kind of penned was that Collins is leaning Kentucky. That's who the favorite is right now. And if Collins was on this year's UCLA team, kind of a 6'8", big, burly, exciting freshman who could rebound and play effort, play defense, that would kind of be the one thing UCLA doesn't have. If you think about Mick Cronin's best UCLA team, you could put in the Final Four team. I like to argue the team that lost to Gonzaga in the Sweet 16 that got hurt was even better, that won the Pac-12. What was Mick Cronin's recipe? It was a veteran point guard, Tiger Campbell. He had some star players around them. You had the Hawkeses of the world. You had the likes of Jalen Clark defensively. And then you had a beast in the post in Bona. And then you had a freshman in Amari Bailey. What UCLA doesn't have this year is that elite defensive talent. They're trying to figure out if Xavier Booker or Steven Jamerson can be that post presence, and they also don't have that impactful freshman. Now, we can also talk about how Trent Perry might become that as a sophomore, but if they had Collins on this year's team, he kind of fit a mold and a role for a player that UCLA doesn't have. Someone who can chase down rebounds, be athletic, play some defense, and give the energy to a large part of this UCLA roster on the starting five that doesn't have it. But right now, Kentucky is leading the recruitment for a local SoCal kid, five-star product in 2026. So Mick Cronin has to get a win. I'm not even sure if this even has to work out at UCLA, but I think it'd be good to showcase for Cronin to the fan base and to everywhere else that he can get a huge win in recruiting for a local five-star product. All right, I think that would be a solid move for UCLA. And if Collins isn't going to sign until April, maybe, just maybe, they have some chance, an extra chance or two, to convince him to come to UCLA, who's in the Final Three with USC and Kentucky, but on the outside looking in with Big Blue Nation. Now you pivot to UCLA football. The Bruins have seen some decommitments and are trying heavily to push in a couple of flips over these last couple of days. Well, the Bruins obviously had a massive wave of talent leave after Deshaun Foster got fired. You had the likes of, lately, Justin Lewis flipping from UCLA to Colorado State. You have Xavier Stinson, I believe, changing his commitment to Iowa. And that left UCLA without some talent on the secondary or for UCLA, namely in the wide receiver room, that was very stacked in this 2026 class. So the recruiting team, the general manager, the whole recruiting department has put together a map to how they can get back in it, right? So UCLA lately, looking according to 24/7 Sports, even seen it by rivals too, that Major Pride is trending towards a flip. This is a San Diego State commit. And I'm not sure if Pride's commitment is tied to any rumors of Sean Lewis and his potential to be UCLA head coach right now. Maybe it's just the opportunity to be like, wait a minute, this is a rising three-star receiver. This is a Western region guy, right? He's from Vegas. He's 6'3" and one of the top 10 to 15 athletes in the state of Nevada. So if you go get a 6'3" receiver, UCLA needs a bigger, stronger receiver to go help out in the passing game in years to come. Major pride, one, solid name. You win in the name department. Two, would be a nice flip. Maybe not as expensive as some of the top 5-star receivers. And as we've had Brian Smith, one of the Locked On Podcast Network's recruiting analysts, he does the Portal podcast. He's talked about how receivers can contribute a lot earlier than other positions, and Major Pride could certainly be one of those guys. Even 24/7 Sports has already logged in a crystal ball for him to flip as a guy who's been committed to San Diego State for over 4 months. And I'm not really sure if that's fully tied in to any potential of Sean Lewis and his brass moving up north. But for now, UCLA is pushing hard to restock the receiver room that was once led by the Pulip twins, who have since decommitted even before the Deshaun Foster firing and then moved on and eventually going to Utah. So UCLA is seeing a lot of movement in this class in the receiver room specifically. Now, another guy UCLA is pushing for is Wyatt Brown. Wyatt Brown is a quarterback, another local kid, SoCal, played at Notre Dame in Sherman Oaks, part of the Mission League, where you got Bishop Amat, you have the Chaminades, you have the Sierra Canyons of the world. 6'2" kid, 3-star in terms of national quarterbacks, just outside the top 75, just outside the top 100 in terms of athletes and players in the state of California. But here's the thing. The one thing UCLA has not put on their resume, whether it was a previous commitment, a decommitment, even truly convinced a kid to come to UCLA in this class for the football program, has been a quarterback. And is that because you have Nico, who could stay up to 2 more years, 1 year or 0 years? You have Luke Duncan, who just has first career snaps against Ohio State. Could he be the favorite next year? Then you've got Nico's little brother, Madden, who's number 3, and is probably going to redshirt this year and still have 4 years of eligibility. Or there's the entire possibility that the new coach comes in and hits the portal hard in January and brings in the next superstar quarterback if it's not Nico for another year or 2. So those are a lot of things that are being balanced right now. And here's the most important thing about Wyatt Brown. He's been committed to West Virginia since late September. UCLA threw him an offer to Brown in November 19th, I believe. Utah threw him an offer on the same day I'm recording this podcast. So he's building a profile for a guy that I've looked at his numbers. They're not high school numbers that are going to pop off the page at you. The Mission League is one of the leagues in high school football that's just a little lower than the Trinity League, although the gap might be shrinking. I'm not sure if Notre Dame's on that level just yet. But for Brown, his numbers are as follows. Just under 2,000 yards passing in 12 games, a completion percentage of 56%, average about 13 yards. He threw for about 164 yards per game. He had 16 touchdowns to 5 picks and a quarterback rating of just under 92. He was also his team's leading rusher, averaging about 7 yards per carry, 80 yards per game, and almost a 1,000-yard rusher with 21 touchdowns on the ground in his senior campaign. So you're like, well, what's UCLA working with right now? They're working with a dual-threat quarterback who's done a lot of the damage for UCLA in the ground game as the leading rusher for this UCLA program. And I'm not sure that the 6'3", listed sometimes 6'4" quarterback is going to come in as a true freshman and dominate, but that's somebody who maybe after sitting a year, if UCLA is able to flip Wyatt Brown, could make an impact. So you got 2 guys. One UCLA is trending to flip in Major Pride. You have the Bruins against the grain with Christian Collins on the basketball front, looking from the outside in, but time to maybe convince that relationship to change if Cronin wants to pursue that. And then finally, you've got Brown, who's a West Virginia commit, but UCLA is not the only Western region program, West Coast program. You don't really call Utah a West Coast program, but they're Western region. And they're throwing offers at this QB because they want him. Utah had a dual threat guy in Devin Dampier. Why not go after somebody to keep that offense in sync? And now UCLA is going to be battling with the Utes and some other programs if Brown is trending to flip. And this is a guy who, numbers wise, maybe doesn't pop off the page as a passer just yet. Doesn't look like, based on the analytical rankings, as somebody that would really juice the fan base for a commitment. We're like, wait a minute, that's somebody who could actually transform into a solid quarterback potentially in the future. All right. So that's where UCLA is looking, between Brown, looking to flip probably very soon, Major Pride. And then before all that, Christian Collins is a win. UCLA needs to get in the recruiting game for Mick Cronin to prove, hey, we can still go get that big freshman. That's the one thing UCLA is missing this year. Well, a couple years ago, UCLA did get that big freshman. Trent Perry decommitted from USC after the coaching switch. Andy Enfield left, Eric Musselman came in, and the Bruins brought in the former McDonald's All-American. And his leap through the early parts of this season is very noticeable. From freshman to sophomore year, Trent Perry, solid numbers. Let's talk about that next and what he needs to take that next level leap to go beat good competition. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you missed the start of the game, or if you just want to ride that hot hand, FanDuel has live bets that gets you everything from who's going to score next to those fourth quarter comebacks that are kind of regular in the NBA. Plus, you can even combine all those live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, and when that team's making that late push, keeps you engaged. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com, sign up, and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Cruising on here on Locked On UCLA, Trent Perry is pushing to make a huge sophomore leap. Huge. And in just the first 5 games, the numbers back it up. There's just one thing we need to see from Trent Perry in a big game that we haven't seen just yet for Perry. But let's hype up the young man. A sophomore who is one of the X factors. You look at 2 players on this UCLA roster who are going to make a big difference. UCLA's success, their ceiling is either going to be third weekend, Elite 8, or they're going to drop in the second round, maybe flirt with the Sweet 16, based on the development of either Xavier Booker or Trent Perry. And we've talked about Booker and his need to be good in the post. For Perry, UCLA's missing that young, talented guy. Well, they have it. He's still an underclassman in a day and age where college basketball's still pretty old. Guys are staying longer and transferring. Perry had to sit on the bench, didn't transfer, and is kind of a young talent, but he's a sophomore, which is how college basketball used to be. A guy as a sophomore, still a young guy, a 6'4" SoCal kid coming from Harvard Westlake, still rather talented. So let's compare the numbers through 32 games as a freshman, through 5 games and a couple of starts in the regular season this year. Last year, Trent Perry played all of 364 minutes and played about 11 minutes per game. Now, Trent Perry in 5 games has already played almost a third of those minutes while playing about 27 less games right now. He has more starts than all of last year, some of that due to a Donovan Dent injury, some of that due to UCLA's inability to start games off well. That's why there's a completely different starting 5 versus Sac State than we saw the previous 4 games. So Trent Perry has benefited from that and had a big game and had some solid numbers against Sac State on Monday. Right now, Perry averaging about 26 minutes per game, so he's playing more than half the game while starting only 2 of the 5. He's almost made the same amount of field goals in 5 games that he did in a 32-game span last year. And that's when it was a crowded backcourt. You had the likes of Sebastian Mack, Sky Clark, Dylan Andrews. You still had Kobe Johnson, Lazar Stefanovic. Heck, you had Dominic Harris riding the bench, and he was the best three-point shooter, one of the best three-point shooters in the country the year prior. So it was a very crowded backcourt for last year's team. This year, not so much. UCLA is going to ride on Donovan Dent. They're going to give Sky Clark all the opportunities. But when they need that third guard, or they need one of those 2 to sit due to either injury in one case, whether it's foul trouble or simply rest, Perry's that energetic guy that could potentially be that hybrid defensive wizard to strong offensive player. And I'm not going to place defensive wizard on him yet because I don't think he has that skill and ability just yet. Yet, right now, He's made 5 threes, almost eclipsing last year's total. In a couple of games, he might do so. He's averaging almost 10 points per game, Trent Perry is, compared to 3.5 last year. And then you're going to point out, well, Zach, if all these numbers are up, if it's just a usage rate thing, that's good. But it's the confidence he's playing with, the opportunity he's taken. And when UCLA was looking for a spark, came through and got some big buckets against Sac State and helped UCLA jump out to a 13-0 lead. The one thing I'd like to see, though, is that the one big name opponent UCLA played this year, Arizona, who's sitting there in the top 5, top 3 in the country, might very well challenge for number 1 spot in the country in a week or so because the Wildcats just beat UConn the other night. Trent Perry played a lot of minutes, so Cronin trusts him to get in the game and be on the floor, but can he be impactful? At this moment, he was not. He made a field goal, had a couple of points, had a couple of rebounds, but it was a big difference from the impactful moments he had in game 1, 11 points, 9 points, 17 points. So he was riding a lot of confidence coming off that West Georgia game where he shot the ball well, hit a couple of threes, shot almost 50%, played the bulk of the minutes, went Dent out, and then came in and saw a reduction of minutes. Now, against any big name opponent, Cronin's going to lean hard on his senior guards, Sky Clark and Donovan Dent. So what we need to see, hopefully, from Perry is either a big shot, something that boosts confidence, whether it's against a Cal, an Arizona State, namely in one of those Big Ten games. It's going to be a while before UCLA takes on one of those, has one of those big games against Gonzaga, but when they play the Big Ten games, Georgia, Oregon and Washington, he needs a big game in one of those to prove to himself that, hey, he can have the confidence and Cronin can trust him in crunch time. So while the leap's good, I like the numbers. He's earned time. Cronin has put a lot on his plate. He put a lot on the character of Trent Perry saying, hey, can you sit and be okay waiting a year to earn time at UCLA? And for Perry, he's like, I'm good with that. Stay the extra year, which already tells you a lot about him. Very different compared to every kid in the country at this day and age. They can go make more money, go get more starting time. And some might even pout, redshirt, go transfer elsewhere, end up in 5 schools in 6 years and make some money and might go pro. But Perry has a lot more potential than that. And if he can develop a consistent 3-point stroke, right now Perry is shooting 31% from 3, 52% from the floor, and is averaging about 3 rebounds per game, where Cronin's asking for the guards to have defensive intensity, rebounding intensity, and Perry at some points has been able to bring that. Now, if you can live up to Cronin's defensive expectations, make a couple of clutch buckets, I'm not sure how long he's going to average 10 points per game. If he does, that's a huge jump from freshman year, stuck behind a bunch of players, to this year, where he is one of the first options off the bench, if not starting, depending on the game and the availability of some of these players. And if he can put up big minutes, put up big numbers, that could even rest some of these guys in games on the road when the UCLA Bruins have to go on the road and play Michigan, Michigan State, go across the country during Big Ten travel, when that's going to start eating at the legs, start eating at the physical ability of some of these players. Perry's ability to grow can hopefully lead to something special. We've seen it in small spurts right now. Now, can he do that against somebody good? Arizona's a first test. Didn't do a whole lot statistically. Now, can he do that against somebody big time later down the road? That's the difference between a UCLA win against a good opponent or maybe a loss. If he makes one more bucket against Arizona, could be the difference between a win or a loss against the Wildcats. That can be said for almost any player on UCLA's roster. But Perry, he's the guy that's got to take that extra leap. He's taken huge steps forward. Now it's coming up on time for him to make that leap. And right now it's looking positive, but we need him to do it against a big opponent. UCLA's opponent next, though, is not a big opponent. It's Presbyterian. So I'm going to talk about what do we think Cronin's lineup's going to be. And for the Blue Hose, they just actually gave Cal some fits. What do I mean by that? Let's talk about it next on Locked On UCLA. UCLA's next opponent, Presbyterian, out of the Big South. you'd think, all right, this is the team that comes in 3-4, that's lost by 20 points at the hands of Navy, taking a couple of losses, including losing by 4 to Sac State. You're like, all right, in terms of this little Empire Classic campus game that UCLA is playing against Sac State, Presbyterian College, and Cal, UCLA should easily be the winner and have 2 easy victories and hopefully a third against Cal. Well, Presbyterian the other night almost shocked the Golden Bears at Haas Pavilion, where the Blue Hose were only trailing by 2 at the break and kept it relatively close as Cal won 67-57. Well, Presbyterian rode the hot hand from downtown of Carl Parrish to 16 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists. And for most of the night, it seemed like Presbyterian was in this game. But what's going to be the real dictator of the action, UCLA, the much bigger, better, more athletic, everything in every category leans UCLA. The only question we have to ask is which UCLA team is going to show up, figuratively and literally. What Cronin lineup is he going to employ? I don't think he might do the same thing 2 games in a row. I think it might even be a bad sign if Cronin has to use the same lineup, same switch up in back-to-back games against opponents UCLA should dominate. This is a game UCLA should beat Presbyterian by close to 30. There have been times where the Bruins look really, really good for spurts, early against San Diego State, for spurts against Arizona, spurts against other teams they've played already. And then there's some times where UCLA's lackadaisical, defensively, rebounding, some assignments, where the Bruins just aren't all there in any aspect of the game. And you have to play complete 40 minutes to prove you can beat a good team. And then do it 6 times in March and April when the brightest lights and the national spotlight's on you, especially at UCLA. So when the Bruins bring in Presbyterian, I'm wondering, can the Bruins keep Carl Parrish from hitting some threes? The other double-figure scorers for Presbyterian against Cal included Tristan Wilson and Jonah Pierce. So early on, those are the guys to look out for. Jonah Pierce shot 60% from the field, had 13 points, fouled out in 30 minutes. Tristan Wilson struggled from field goal percentage, but he did have 13 points. It was Carl Parrish's three-point shooting that kept Presbyterian in the game, where they made 7 of their 23-point attempts. And that still only led to 57 points on the road. So it's looking likely that UCLA could dominate Presbyterian and Cal, but let's start with Presbyterian. The one thing I want to look for in this game, what lineup starts for Mick Cronin? If it's the secondary starting lineup, then I'm thinking we're going to see a lot of energy. UCLA jumps out to a quick start. Could easily be 13-2, 13-3, and then Mick Cronin might put his starting unit back in the game. If UCLA goes with the regular lineup, which would be Booker, goes with Daly, goes with Bilodeau, Clark, and Donovan Dent, if they're all available and healthy for varying degrees, then I think UCLA and how they start will be heavily scrutinized by Cronin, by myself, by you at home, listening, watching, listening and tuning into the game, however you might do on that Friday night. It's really going to depend how they show up. And if they don't show up, Cronin already listed the fact that when they came out of the locker room against Sac State, that they didn't have the intensity. The deflections were down significantly, 33 in the first half, 9 in the second half. The Hornets played a much more even game in the second half, and that's to be expected when you're up by 25 at the break. But that's UCLA's starting 5, that some of which fouled out, Sky Clark and Bilodeau. And then the energy from the starting bench players wasn't maintained because the starting 5 couldn't bring it out of the locker room. So that's where UCLA they got to get something energy-wise. They got to showcase they want to kick somebody's butt so bad it's embarrassing. UCLA hasn't embarrassed anybody yet. What got everybody so hyped during the Lonzo Ball years, where they're throwing alley-oops, dunking on fools, and making it look super exciting and beating teams by 40-50, up and down the court, high pace, good tempo, and they were doing it with a lot of electricity that forced everybody to come to Pauley Pavilion and made the Bruins one of the top-ranked teams in the country. You talk about a few years ago. UCLA took the losses in Vegas with the Pac-12 winning team to Baylor, to Illinois, and then turned that into a very long winning streak where the Bruins just kind of mauled down just about everybody in their path before they eventually succumbed to one of their first losses in Pac-12 play that season. There's always something that gets the ball rolling. Cronin has a tirade. Earlier this year, it was, I'd like to fire myself after game one. In this one, he says, I don't make statements. I don't send messages. My dog doesn't have a doghouse, right? All those fun quotes that Cronin likes to give after a game. What's it going to lead to in this game? Are they going to shoot better? Are they going to play better defense? Will they grab every rebound and make sure Presbyterian has 0 second chance points and 0 opportunities to get an offensive board? That's almost statistically impossible, but if UCLA is grabbing a lot of defensive rebounds at a high clip, boxing out at a much better rate, securing the long rebounds that the guards have been failing to secure, then yes, UCLA will improve and significantly impress Cronin, who is usually hard to impress, hard to make happy, considering his team right now is not playing that good, not playing that hard, all the way top to bottom that he'd like. So I'd like to see, one, which post player is going to get a lot more runtime. Is it Jamerson? Is he healthy enough after a bit of an ankle tweak, an ankle roll against Sac State? Or is it Booker, who might feast and might get close to 15 to 20 points in this game as the main post player? And then what starting lineup is there? And what energy do they bring? Because if Cronin puts out this lineup again, and they play with a lot of energy and intensity, come out, and the second starting five, the bench players who are the regular starters, don't bring out the same intensity, we might start to see this trend where Cronin's going to go with the other guys against Cal, against all these other teams, where UCLA should still win by a wide margin. But can they keep playing these games through the beginning of Big Ten play in early December and all the way to their mid-December matchup against Gonzaga? Those are all fascinating things to look at. So the expectation, UCLA wins by 30 to 35 points. How they get there, that's going to determine if UCLA continues to tumble in the top 25 or climb a little bit and build some momentum into a pre-Thanksgiving matchup against Cal. And by the time we get there, we're going to have had reactions. We'll talk more keys to UCLA Washington, including fun UCLA Rose Bowl memories. And heck, I'll even be there all day tailgating and at that game. So come say hi if you see me. But other than that, get your hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked on UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.